the Zulu. Guardians of the Eastern Gate. What very few people know is this. The Zulu are not just an African Bantu tribe. They are part of a much older story, a story written long before Babylonian maps, crowns, or empires. A story that begins with the 12 tribes of Israel. Their ancestors didn't emerge from darkness. They carried light, our Heavenly Father's sacred memory, rhythm, and covenant. After the destruction of the temple in 70 AD, the Heavenly Father scattered his people. The Roman Empire grew in strength and audacity. Few could remain near Jerusalem, and many began a long migration west and south, following the rivers, the stars, and the voice within. The tribes didn't come as conquerors. They came as carriers of memory, songs, feasts, and family lines. Either enslaved or defeated, their relationship with the God of Abraham was severely damaged. Among them were Baal priests, judges, livestock farmers, musicians, and warriors. Some, like the Lemba, came from Judah, Levi, Dan, Issachar, and others from the northern tribes of Israel. And as they walked, there became many nations expanding into Africa. By the time the Zulu regrouped and rose as a strong warrior people, their sacred rhythm was already lost. But they built with order, lived with reverence, and honored the land as a sacred inheritance. Their kings ruled with councils. Their warriors fought to protect, not to plunder. And the drums of their ceremonies echoed something older than any crown. They were not totally pagans. They were just displaced and under the curse, as written in Romans 11. But as they migrated, something else crept in. Syncretism. The scattered tribes, once carriers of the gospel and covenant, began mixing truth with error. They absorbed the customs of the people descending from Ham's lineage. They passed or settled among. Over time, ancestor worship replaced the direct relationship with the Heavenly Father. Sangomas and bone throwers took the place of prophets. Rain rituals, animal sacrifices, and totemic dances became dominant. Echoes of Canaanite and Cushite practices, once forbidden by the Heavenly Father. This wasn't African identity. This was spiritual confusion, a blending of holy with profane. The legacy of the fallen angels, Ham and Nimrod's clans. Why do these biblical lineage lines matter? Because the greatest of deceitful acts were pulled off by the Roman Catholic Church and Adamites over the last 1500 years. So let's start to make the corrections. Instead of saying all Africans are Bantu or all blacks are Ham, we must rather say Semitic Africans are Israelite remnants. They are part of the 12 tribes. Hamitic Africans are Cushite and Egyptian civilizations. They were very powerful, but not covenant 12 tribes at all. They are known for being from the pagan Nimrod's lineage and various descendant strands. The Japhetic Africans are outsiders or intruders who later entered the continent. They are the Khazar, Greco-Roman, and Ottoman, predominantly from Asia. Africa carries 3 streams of Noah: Semitic, Hamitic, and Japhetic. Among them, the Semitic tribes, with both Israelite and Edomite bloodlines, carry the kingdom prophecy of Romans 11, where brothers must be reconciled into one tree. Jacob was blessed with 12 sons, forming the 12 tribes who carried the covenant blood through his blessing. But Esau, father of Edom, rejected that blessing. Ashkenaz stole the name, and together with the Edomites, they usurped the thrones, while the true 12 tribes were exiled and erased. Do not boast against the branches. Remember that you do not support the root, but the root supports you. Romans 11:17-18. Therefore, the British throne is not the throne of David. It is Japhetic by blood, Edomite in spirit, and Babylonian in practice. Hence their power came not from covenant but from empire and deception. Hamitic tribes have strong ancient empires, connected to Nimrod's different offspring. They were the tribes that defiled themselves with the fallen angels, producing giants. The deception of empire was to call them all the same. They openly oppose God, the father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But the scroll of truth is opening now, and the true Semitic Africans, the 12 tribe remnants, are awakening. In that day I will raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, and I will close up the breaches, and I will raise it up, as in the days of old. Amos 9:11. The restoration begins not with revival of tradition, but a return to the original blueprint. The Zulu and all the scattered tribes are now being called not back to tribal religion, but back to biblical obedience. To rebuild the tabernacle of David means to remove what defiled it, because the real throne returns only when the altar is clean. There is a difference between culture and covenant, between tradition and truth, between lifestyle choices and spiritual inheritance. Many scattered tribes, including the Zulu, have clung to cultural fragments picked up along the way. But not all of it is holy. Not all of it is theirs. Holding on to borrowed pagan practices, just to feel rooted, seen, or proud, is not wisdom. It is spiritual sabotage. This is not about rejecting heritage. It is about purifying it. The true 12 tribes must awaken. The Zulu kingdom must take the lead as guardians of the Eastern Gate, not to support the culture of the empire system, not to the customs of the nations, but to their true identity of old. A royal priesthood, a set-apart people, kingdom rulers. Not dancers around ancestral fires, but torchbearers of divine order. Again, as said in Amos 9, the tabernacle will be raised again, but not with the debris of syncretism. Only what is clean, only what is consecrated, will remain. Few know that before the British, before Blood River, there was King Shaka Kasinzangakona, a visionary, a reformer, a warrior king. He didn't just build a kingdom, he restored discipline, unity, and reverence to a scattered people. He restructured the regiments into the Ebutho system. He taught the strength of loyalty, training, and clean living. He established a code, not of chaos, but of order. Yes, he ruled with intensity. But those who study the truth know King Shaka reawakened a priestly rhythm. His kingship carried more than might. It carried and started to awaken memory. The first Zulu name most Boer remember is King Dingaan, King Shaka's brother. He ruled a vast kingdom, powerful, structured, feared. In 1838, he signed a treaty with Piet Retief, seeking peace and terms for land. But days later, he had Retief and his men executed. Why? Some call it treachery. Others call it retaliation for the actions of other colonial intruders. But spiritually, it was more than politics. It was the collision of two houses, the scattered 12 tribes and the rising house of Edom. What followed was the day of the vow, the Battle of Blood River. Through their fall, salvation has come to the nations to provoke Israel to jealousy. Romans 11:11. The Zulu were not savages, they were judged sons, heirs who had forgotten the covenant. And the Boer, though not of the 12 tribes, were used as instruments of awakening. It was not just a battlefield, it was prophecy unfolding. But the true theft came later, not at Blood River, but through the British Crown. They came under the banner of Christian civilization, with paper treaties and false diplomacy. After the Anglo-Zulu War of 1879, they dismantled the royal houses. They looted thrones, headdresses, weapons, ancestral shields, and more. These weren't curiosities. They were symbols of covenant, blood kings, and guardianship. Today, many sacred objects remain behind glass in the British Museum, locked, mocked, stripped of their prophetic weight. This was not mere conquest, it was defilement. But here is the truth. The throne of the Zulu was never yours to steal. It was hidden, but never broken. And the Father is returning it. Now the scroll is open. And the prince shall have a portion on either side of the holy district. So my princes shall no longer oppress my people. Ezekiel 45:8-9. The Zulu, and many tribes like them, are being called back to their true inheritance. But this restoration will not come through politics, pride, or performance. It will come through obedience, Because the kingdom is not built on culture, it is built on covenant, and the Eastern Gate, once trampled and contested, will be guarded and ruled again, not by warriors with spears, but by hearts marked with truth. The land remembers, the rivers remember, the stolen thrones are remembered, and now the remnant is rising, because the truth can only set you free when you make it yours and act on it. See, I have set before you an open door and no one can shut it. Revelation 3:8. From beyond the rivers of Cush, my worshippers, shall bring me an offering. Zephaniah 3:10. Remove the diadem and take off the crown, exalt the lowly and abase the exalted, until he comes whose right it is. Ezekiel 21:27. The Zulu were never just a tribe. They were a gatekeeping people in the interim. A people called for true priestly leadership, from King Shaka to King Cetshwayo, from King Dinizulu to King Goodwill Zwelithini. The crown passed through fire, betrayal, exile, and revival, but the throne remains, not as a seat of empire, but as a witness of what once was and what will be again. For the Father has not forgotten who once ruled his kingdoms. Watch part 2 for more on this series, to find out why Britain and the Roman Catholic Church deceived the whole world, and most importantly, the Bantu African kingdoms, which include the Zulu tribes.